Hello, and you are listening to The Book Was Better, the podcast where we talk about the book of the film. I'm Luke.
I'm Lauren.
And this week we're talking about
Ghostbusters.
The spooktacular something or other.
Hey you, put down the popcorn and turn on the light. It's gonna be alright, my friend. In the end, take my hand. Trust me, the book was better.
Now, this book does have a subtitle, Lauren. What is it? It's the spooktacular spectacle, the spooktacular.
I wasn't prepared for this quiz. I don't have it open.
All right. That's it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Catch on the flips, Jumanji. Short episode. Short episode is a good episode. Just get out of here. At least we delivered, right?
Well, this is one of two different versions, correct?
Well, that's why I bring it up. You know, on Saturday night, I wrote a segue for the first time, and now you just delivered one yourself. Not one I can just jump on, unfortunately. But, yeah, there were two different versions of the Ghostbusters novelization.
Why?
Well, Lauren, I'm glad you asked why. Because that's the question, isn't it? Like, why? Why two? Why is one not enough? You would think that, like, reading one of these things, that'd be it. But there is two versions. I can only think of one other time when this has happened. Do you remember what this is?
Steve Terminator.
Oh, look at you go.
Was I right?
Lauren, yeah, you are. Absolutely, it was. It was that first Terminator book.
Oh,
because
sweet.
we read the Sean Hudson one, where clearly they had no idea what this film was going to be or what the projected audience was going to be. And he wrote an incredibly gory, sexually explicit version of Terminator, where I felt like I had just given Linda Hamilton a annual checkup by the time that, you know, it's a real put on the rubber gloves to read this book. It was very explicit, very bizarre. And I think, of course, then they commissioned one that was a little bit more in line with the film and the sequels, because the sequel's a little bit more kid friendly, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it is. Especially with little Eddie Furlong.
Yeah, but you know what? We're here to talk about Terminator. We're here to talk about Ghostbusters, another huge franchise.
Yeah. Number 2 was terrible too.
But it was like I'm pretty sure up until Home Alone, it was the highest grossing comedy ever.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it mixes genres. It was really big. So you asked the question, why have two of them? And my answer is, I don't know. But we are going to discover along the way. And I did have some speculation along the way, which it turns out was wrong. But I'm still going to share that speculation as we continue. And you know, that'll be part of the mystery. We will solve this mystery together. We'll be like Shaggy and Take Your Pick.
Scooby?
Scooby? Okay.
Wait, who's
Think
Scooby?
like Velma, Daphne, something like that. You want to go with the dog? Sure.
You're
I guess they were
Scooby.
they were pretty friendly.
Woodward and Bernstein?
Who are Woodward and Bernstein?
Oh, they uncovered the whole Nixon Watergate scandal.
Ah, yeah. See, I've heard that. I'm having one of those Beta Meinhof moments where I heard that like earlier today or yesterday in a different context.
I think, yeah, probably in regards to the movie starring Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. Anyway, that was a good movie. Check it out, everyone.
Did it have ghosts in it that were busted?
No, but I saw a boom mic in it.
Ooh.
In one of the shots.
The ghost of poor production values.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I bet that haunted the boom mic holder for many years to come. So, look, let's get into this because there's actually a lot to cover. And this is one of those really interesting books where sometimes we just make fun of the writing. Other times, especially with these really big popular films that most people have seen, certainly of our generation particularly, this is one where the novelizationists has really made it their own. And that's something I think really unique to that 80s, 70s period. And there is a lot of extra stuff in this book. A lot of backstory, a lot of theorizing, some extra scenes and things which just are not in the movie. So this is one where rather than going, haha, look at this, I'm making like a dick joke or something. This is something where I'm thinking, yeah, these excerpts are actually really interesting. And if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you're interested in the lore, you're interested in the what could have been, this is the story, right? And we're just going to share that with the listeners.
Yes, we're going to drop knowledge bombs on them.
Absolutely. It's a true American fashion. Let's just help everybody understand what we're all about by dropping bombs on them.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, I'm enthused. Now, this one is written by Richard Mueller.
Mm-hmm. I see he wrote World War I Flying Ace Time Machine number 24.
Yep. I haven't read the first 23, so I haven't picked that one up. But certainly all 24 of those are on my list. He also wrote or contributed, I noticed there were a couple of authors for this, to Zoonauts, The Secret of Animalville.
Okay. What's Animalville's secret?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to read the book. I imagine there's some pretty dark skeletons in the closet. Probably human skeletons. Maybe that's it. Animalville, everything's friendly. Oh, look at all the animals getting along. And where are the humans? Oh, they're all being killed, eaten, and their skeletons have been put in closets.
The secret is it's Animal Farm.
Well, I would think that animals have a lot of space in their closets because they don't. You don't see them in like wearing coats and things, do you? Very rarely, anyway. So you could imagine they've just eaten a big meal of their human oppressors. There's bones everywhere. They're like, they've got two things on their minds. What are we going to do with all these bones? Two, what are we going to do with all this empty closet space? And then suddenly, a light bulb goes off. Light bulb's a very human thing. What would an animal have go off above their head?
I don't know.
Maybe some sort of like apple.
Cow pie? I don't know.
A cow pie, yeah, sure. Yeah. He also wrote Naval Warfare of the Future, brackets, the Library of Future Weaponry. So he has a lot of foresight into the future, time traveler as well. And Palmdale Must Be Destroyed. Any idea of Palmdale? Palmdale? Heard of that before?
No. Nope. Sounds like it would be a city in California.
All right, well, guess no one's gonna miss it, so that's fine. Actually, a lot of these books, and this is interesting because I do think, spoilers here, as we get into Ghostbusters, he does prove to be quite an interesting writer. But if this is the same guy that has all these credits, most of these books are self-published, very poor cover art, like just dumped onto Amazon sort of thing. So not with any legitimate publisher as far as I can tell. So he didn't really appear to have a career beyond this. So that's another mystery, Lauren, to add to your mystery list.
Maybe he's a ghost.
He could be a ghost. Wouldn't that be ironic?
A ghost writer.
Maybe he got busted right after writing it, and that was it. He was sent to some sort of spiritual limbo where the only things he could get to write were things like The Zoonauts, The Secret of Animalville. We're going to have to get into this book, Lauren. It starts with a very apt quote by Mr. John Burroughs.
How much there is in books that one does not want to know.
Which really should be the slogan of this show. It sums everything up perfectly. Put that on iTunes.
Yeah, it was kind of a nice touch to have a recognizable quote at the beginning of each chapter. Yeah,
it showed that the Mueller was really thinking this through. He was pondering it all. Let's read the beginning here. It was a bright, sunny day in early autumn, one of those days New Yorkers dote on, take pictures of, and point out to their country cousins as example of the city at its best.
The city after summer, after the pavements stop frying. The city not yet locked in the icy streets and frozen dog wastes of winter.
A picture postcard day, a day to write home to Cincinnati or Scranton or Tullahoma about. And every New Yorker with an excuse was out of doors, clogging the sidewalks, slowing traffic, frightening the pigeons.
Tour buses, hot dog vendors, street musicians, flower sellers, all had noticed an increase in trade. People were more cheerful. There was an excess of happy normalcy in the air.
Now, what better way to set the scene for a supernatural attack than a long-ass weather report, just to set the ball in motion?
But it's an accurate one.
Yeah, well, I mean, you are obviously very familiar with New York, Lauren. I really want you to fact check this.
I will. Well, summertime, I called it the season of piss and garbage smell. Because it's like winter, cold, spring, nice, summer, smells like pee and garbage, and is really hot. Fall, nice.
I noticed as well, they did actually, Richard Mueller said autumn. He didn't say fall, which I respect as an English speaker.
We'll get into that one, sure.
But yeah, I think that's really interesting. And hot dogs. First paragraph, right in there.
Dirty water dogs.
Doesn't set the scene, then what does?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we meet two characters. Think about the beginning of the film. You're thinking, oh, I bet I know who these two characters are. It's two hobos. Now, this is already where things start to drift just a little bit.
Two men who particularly reveled in the sunlight that September day were Harlan Beaujay and Robert Leonard Combs. Beaujay had once been a jockey, until at the age of 24 he had inexplicably gained 45 pounds and 4 inches in height, which finished forever his dreams of winning the Triple Crown.
This had been some 35 years ago, and Beaujay had been unemployed since. His partner, Coombs, a taciturn Oklahoma Indian, had come to New York to make his fortune as a singer. He had drive, ambition, daring, pizzazz, everything in fact but a voice. And so Harlan Beaujay and Robert Leonard Coombs were now partners in leisure, philosophy, and life. This is Ghostbusters we are reading, right? Like, couldn't you be forgiven for being a little bit confused? Like, it almost sounds like we're reading two characters from Confederacy of Dunces or a friggin' Vonnegut or something like that. It's suddenly like, here's these two eccentric, crazy hobos. Why are they here? And this was the warning sign for me. I'm thinking, this is why they commissioned a second book, because this one's about hobos.
Right. Well, a little bit. They're kind of like the choir that comes in and out.
Yeah, they are. They are. They're the Greek chorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of like, the guys from Waiting for Godot or like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, something like that. They are seeing the events of Ghostbusters unfold. I did, however, recognize these two characters instantly. Did you know the backstory to these guys?
Nope, did not.
There is a deleted scene on the Ghostbusters DVDs where there's a pair of hobos in Central Park. And it's that sequence where Louis Tully, played by Rick Moranis, is running away from the Terror Dog. And he bumps into these two hobos who are having this little philosophical conversation. Now, these hobos are actually played by Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd wearing like costumes and makeup and disguise. So it's really weird because they're obviously also playing the main characters in the film. So to see them doing a dual role is very confusing. It's really on the nose. Like it's sort of more about them doing sketch comedy than servicing the story. And it was rightly cut. However, for some reason here, they've been put into center stage. These two hobo characters will be reappearing throughout the Ghostbusters story to give their opinions.
It's kind of strange. I said it's kind of like a catagonist.
yeah, like watching from the dumpster. And in this instant, they're outside the New York City Library and they're sort of philosophizing about it and about the content of books, which they claim are dangerous. For example, I could nod off while reading this one and smash my head on the end of the table or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And now, finally, we are in the library. We're in, okay, this is Ghostbusters. We remember this. We meet the young librarian, according to this, Alice Melvin.
Instead of becoming a fashion designer, she was, at age 29, working in the New York Public Library. Stout and plain, any sort of meaningful social life had eluded her, and she'd become a prisoner of her fantasies.
29 years old, apparently. This woman, if you recall her in the film.
I looked her up. She was born in 1928.
1920, okay, so...
That's when she was born, so...
Yeah, maybe that was the confusion.
Well, New York is a rough town, it chews you up and spits you out.
Yeah, that is some rough living. That's what happens when you eat, like, street hot dogs. I suppose. And very stereotypical librarian bullshit here as well.
Do you take offense to this?
Oh, yeah, I do. I really do.
Yeah.
This idea, and also just even the idea that if you're stout and plain, that's it. You're screwed. No one wants to be friends with you. And why would they? I mean, how gross. And I thought this was a kind of unnecessary detail, perhaps.
Behind one of them, in a collection of European popular incunabula, she had discovered a book of woodcuts depicting sexual positions and concepts she'd not dreamed existed. They were crude in comparison to better works of both the period and the subject, but they touched a chord deep in Alice Melvin.
Kind of like the Urban Dictionary in woodcut form, I imagine. And you kind of got to wonder, is this the character's fantasy, or is this Richard Mueller projecting his own fantasy onto this character?
So
I think he's
weird.
giving a little bit too much of himself away here. The fact that he's going, okay, this is, because I mean, the story is very clear why we're seeing this librarian. She's gonna, be going about her job and get attacked by a ghost. And he's like, yeah, but it's this female character. I'm feeling kind of lonely here as I'm typing away. Maybe we can just add a little bit of sex to this and spice it up a little bit.
Yeah. Ew.
But eventually, thankfully, the ghost does attack. Cards and books fly everywhere, and suddenly dozens of books are in motion, crossing back and forth across the aisle like rush hour pedestrians. It was too much for her. No, she cried. I won't do it again, I promise. I'll never look at another dirty picture. And at that instant, she turned the final corner and came face to face with the thing. They heard her scream all over the building. Sounds like there's something strange in this neighborhood.
Yeah, who are you going to call?
No idea yet. We're not up to that.
Oh, I was thinking when I was reading this, like, card catalog. What is this card catalog that you speak of? What's a library? Like iTunes library?
Primary school, we had the card catalog. Everything was on a card.
Oh, yeah. So did we. I worked
crazy.
at my school library in college, and my job was to pull all the books off the shelf in order and make sure they were in the computer. All of our pre-1920 books. So I went down through the old stacks and just pulled out everything. Half of them weren't even in the computer because they never got put in. So I had to go find the card and find...
The past is ridiculous. And speaking of ridiculous, we then cut to Peter Venkman, Bill Murray's psychic experiment scene. And it's really starts with a bit of an interesting insight, I guess, into this great man, Peter Venkman, my favorite.
Dr. Peter Venkman loved his work. He often said it to himself, precisely those words. I love my work. I'm not always quite sure what it is, but I do love it. I love getting up in the morning. I love coming down to my lab in the basement of Weaver Hall. And I love getting paid by Columbia University for doing whatever it is that I do. In fact, he considered that a large part of what he did. Perhaps the major part consisted of just that, the search for identity, for purpose, for meaning of just what it is you did. God, I love psychology. It's so wonderfully formless. You can get away with anything.
I like this. I'm already feeling there's definite character to this book because Mueller doesn't have to give us all of this. He can just tell the scene as it happens in the script, but he's thinking about these characters. So it's really interesting, but it's so eccentric. Like there's just something not quite right about it as well. It's really endearingly odd for me.
Yeah, it's so fun. It's like quirky, interesting.
And the scene itself, plays out just like the film. All the dialogue is pretty much intact. I realize that happens throughout. A lot of lines that I thought might have been ad-libbed on set or whatever are actually in this book, in the script. Ray appears. He doesn't get much of an intro, but when they do catch up with Egon... and they go off to actually investigate this library ghost, Egon gets some really great backstory, in my opinion. I like this. Throughout his childhood in the quiet suburbs of Cleveland, Egon Spengler had provoked that reaction more than once. I think you're spending too much time with Egon. While his friends were indulging in the delights of childhood, cutting school, shoplifting, minor vandalism, Egon Spengler was making a nuisance of himself at the private a public library, ordering books that the librarians had never heard of, nor liked the sound of, the mysteries of latent abnormality, electrical applications of the psychosexual drive, your friend the fungus, astral projections as an untouched power source, the Necronomicon. I think this just paints such a wonderful picture of this guy. Like, he's already such an amazing character. And Mueller's gone and thought up, I mean, these books, I guess they sound pretty crazy. They're probably about as crazy as his own biography. But, yeah.
Your friend the fungus.
And these descriptions, this carries on for at least a page, including this, which I also liked.
While his friends were going on dates and fumbling around in each other's underwear. That's a great description. Egon was observing their mating rituals through binoculars and taking notes. Then, based on a complex formula he worked out involving ambient temperature, phases of the moon, tidal cycles for Lake Erie, and a dozen other factors, he calculated that the exact number of cases of venereal disease that would be reported over the next 3 months, and posted his findings on the high school bulletin board.
Yeah, Mueller's really starting to win me over here, because I just love an author that just goes for it. And I do think he understands these characters very well. And I have read criticisms, people saying that he doesn't understand the characters and that it put him off the book. But for me, I mean, this is that sort of heightened backstory that fits that character. I love how he just even sort of tweaks it. This idea of, when I start to read about Egon spying on these people with his binoculars, I think, oh, what a shame to just turn him into a pervert character. But then when you see that he's taking data and what he does with it, suddenly it all clicks together for me. And I go, yeah, that's Egon. That works.
That's Egon.
Yeah,
Totally.
I think that's really cool. They investigate the library. The ectoplasm is described in Venkman's mind as cosmic boogers, which I thought was kind of cool. And then we finally see our first ghost. It's a ghost, Lauren. Ooh.
The light swirled in tighter and began to take on a definite shape, that of a somewhat portly torso, the essence still vaporous where the arms, legs, and head should be. The lines of 2 large, sagging breasts began to emerge. "What is it?" whispered Stance. Venkman shrugged. Whatever it was hardly threatening in this state. It looks like a pair of breasts and a potbelly.
Clearly foreshadowing for the all-female reboot, when New York City will be terrorized by ghost titties.
Ooh, I think it's actually Dan Aykroyd's future self.
Yeah, maybe. Current present self.
You burnt out Dan Aykroyd.
I really wanted to know if this was in the script, like if this was initially what was going to happen, that you would first just see these like boobs, ghost boobs materialize, because it's so broad, isn't it? Like one of those things that someone might write and go, oh, this is funny, and then in practice they go, no, this is ridiculous, we can't actually do this. And then finally the whole woman forms, except for the legs, which I'm a breast man, that doesn't worry me too much. And when they attempt to get her, she transforms. The ghost reformed a few feet away and exploded upward and outward in a rush of air into the form of a hideous demon, claws outstretched, coming toward them. They stumbled back, smelling the horrible breath of the thing, feeling the heat as it screamed forth a single word. Quiet! Which I don't think she actually says quiet in the film, does she? She just screams.
And then the piano music kicks in.
Scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my god, that terrified me. I even knew it was coming because my auntie, who's like 14 years older, she'd seen it before I did. And I remember being in the car with her and her saying, yeah, and then the ghost turns around and it's really scary, and me thinking, oh, and your imagination starts to run wild. And then when it actually happens, it's like, shit! And I don't think I was expecting that. You're thinking, oh, this is a comedy, it's going to be funny. And then there's this image that, especially when you're young, really horrifies it. Which is the charm of the film, because it really commits to both genres.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
That's what you're going to say? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just took it away from you. I'm sorry. I'm just talk. This is the problem with Skype, Lauren. If you were right here, it would be different.
Well, would you like to pay for my moving costs?
There would be cute. Yes, I will.
Right.
Just hang on. I've got my phone. I'll just put the money through. Can I pay PayPal? Okay.
Yeah, I guess. I'd prefer a check though.
A check.
Take down to the Piggly Wiggly.
You near a Piggly Wiggly?
We don't have Piggly Wigglies in Islip. Sorry.
Well, that sucks. Bums. All right. Okay, so we're on track again. This is the Ghostbusters we know and love. We know where we are now. We're oriented. We're on the map. We've got it. We're derailed by Bojay and Harlan, who are sitting outside on the steps, where one of the Ghostbusters, when they're running out, drops a piece of equipment, and now they've got the ghost equipment. Are you being attacked by a cat?
Yes.
You don't have to hide it. That's fine. Our listeners are interested in that. That's real life. That's the real thing.
She just bashed her head against the desk and it made a horrible sound. Are
Is
you
she
okay?
live?
Yeah, she's fine.
Okay.
Thick skull.
It's all right, everybody. Cat's okay.
Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah, I'll
Sorry.
send you over some money for the cat as well. There we go.
Okay, good. For better.
Yeah, so these hobos have ghost busting equipment in hand, and they're going to trade it in for a bottle of wine, supposedly.
Yes, all homeless people are just horrible drunks, right? Yeah.
I think so. I'm pretty sure. But didn't you? The way this was written in the book, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be a whole B story. This is going to be a whole separate story about these guys trying out the equipment, doing stuff with the equipment, like a parallel hobo Ghostbusters is going to be happening alongside the actual Ghostbusters.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, but it never comes up again. Like, they never pick up this thread about these guys having this piece of equipment. We don't know what they did with it.
Well, he's holding a bottle of wine later in the park, so I guess they traded it for wine.
Yeah. But then who's got it? Why don't we pick up that thread? Why is that not the story? Parallel Ghostbuster story. I think that's amazing. Okay, now we get our backstory on Ray. Because the Ghostbusters, they're kicked out of university. They're going to start their own ghost-busting business, which makes sense because they're Ghostbusters. We get our backstory on Ray. He's got two siblings, a Republican and a Democrat. Uh-oh. He's from Islip.
Woohoo!
I read
live
your
in
note.
Islip.
on how to pronounce that. I would have said Islip.
Right, because it's pronounced like island. Islip. Don't blame us, though. It's named after a town in England, so...
Yeah, they'll do that. They're tricky. Tricky buggers.
It's a very nice town, Islip.
Is it a sort of place that has a little bit of a sort of spookiness about it? Like, can you imagine somebody like young Ray growing up there and being interested in the paranormal?
Yeah, actually, this is where all the rich steel and railroad barons had their summer homes, like the Vanderbilts and whatever. And so there's all these old buildings around because they're all gone, long gone. So we do have a lot of like old mansions and things that are parks now, but people say that my cemetery is haunted. Yeah, we also have an abandoned mental hospital.
You know what's worse than an abandoned mental hospital?
What?
A full one.
A full one?
Full of crazy
people. You know what
people.
happened? They just closed. They closed it like in the mid-'80s or whatever and just let everyone go. I'm not even kidding. And somebody came to the church where I work and beat up the secretary.
Oh, shit.
They installed a security system after that.
Thanks for bringing down our comedy podcast.
Sorry.
Gee.
It was a ghost?
It was a ghost! The comedic ghost.
She survived.
He slimed me.
But it's still a very nice place to live. I'm not
Yeah,
kidding.
well, no one believes that anymore.
I know. Sorry, we have
No
an
one's
airport.
going. Oh, well. So yes, we get a long story about Venkman. This is something happened in the past. He drove Ray to his family home one night while borrowing the car. He got taken in by the family. He fell for Ray's sister Jean, who he absconded with and ended up abandoning in a hotel, presumably after.
Venkman is so cute in this book. The way they describe him, he's supposed to be so handsome. I'm like,
well,
yeah,
it's
Bill Murray.
Confidence. Confidence goes a
charming.
long way. Yeah.
It's very charming.
And then Ray's parents die in a plane crash. And Egon believes that they are maybe still alive in the Bermuda Triangle because that's kind of where they were. And this is all really long-winded lead up to the fact that Ray has been bequeathed the necessary money to start up the Ghostbusters franchise. And this is stated quite eloquently in a letter from Ray's now deceased father.
Ray, there will be a distasteful reading of the will, with the three of you glaring and sniffing at each other, but I wanted to tell you in advance that I'm leaving you the house. You should know and prepare in case Jean or Carl decides to contest the will. It's not that I think you're worthier than either of them. It's because of that Peter Venkman character you brought to the house. I figure that as long as you've got friends like him, you're going to need all the help you can get. So I want you to have some property to fall back on.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of invention from Richard Mueller here. He's really like, thinking about all these characters, all their stories, and how it all comes together. And, there's this other little bit as well. Before they come up with the name Ghostbusters, Egon suggests
It's all you, boo.
phenomena... I can't say phenomenon anyway. Phenomenological exterminators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one.
Trickier to put on a t-shirt. They get the firehouse and they hire Janine Melnitz, the secretary, and we get this little tidbit of information.
The logo had been Janine's idea. So far, the woman was working out. She hadn't yet asked to be paid.
Sounds perfect. Sounds like the sort of Mad Men situation they're running there.
Casual 80s sexism.
And we also finally meet Dana Barrett, played by Sigourney Weaver.
Yay.
Dana Barrett was not aware that she was being watched as she stepped out of her cab, shouldered her groceries, got a good grip on her cello case, and walked towards the building. Across the street in Central Park, Robert Leonard Combs made an off-colour remark about her legs, for which he was sternly admonished by Harlan Bojay. So even when we're getting to meet, like, the female lead of this thing, oh no, these comical hobos come in and just take over the scene. They're irrepressible.
They get around, too.
I know, they're everywhere. They're on the... Maybe they are... See, what if they had turned out to be ghosts? That would have been something.
Ah, interesting.
They're not. So it's nothing.
Oh, okay.
Let's not waste any more time on nothing. Let's instead meet... we got to meet... There's more characters to meet, right? We got to meet Dana's dorky neighbour, Lewis Tully. But that plays out pretty much just like the film, the exact same dialogue and everything. But inside her kitchen, our next encounter with the supernatural occurs. All yours.
Ah, there it was, a rhythmic chant like the temple scene in Gunga Din, she decided. Not the sort of thing I want in my refrigerator. Could that little ding-a-ling have gotten in there and put a tape recorder in my fridge? That's it, she decided. She opened the door.
Just for clarification, sorry, that little ding-a-ling is Rick Moranis. So that idea that Rick Moranis could be poking around in your fridge,
Rick Moranis.
That would be... yeah. You say tomato, I say more anus.
You say tomato, I say it correctly.
No, you say tomato. I don't say tomato.
You say tomato. I say
tomato.
Yeah.
I say, be a dear and pass me one of those tomatoes, would you? And I say, banana, not banana.
I totally say banana every time.
Banana. Give me one of those bananas.
Anyway, hot air
I
rush
can't get
out.
off my fanny.
Ew, don't say that.
Well, no, that's your fanny, not our fanny. Fanny's a
gross.
completely different thing. You know, the pronunciation that I enjoyed the other day was, I was listening to a podcast, and I've talked before about that. One of the big differences in the way we pronounce things is America does a...
You never talk about that.
No, I know. Well, this was the first. Is the U being substituted as a double O. Double O, an oo sound. And that's how we get things like we say emu, Americans say emu. And they were talking about shoes, and it was a puma, and it was a puma. And I just thought, what a way to like take this magnificent, rippled, muscled feline and just take all the power out of it by calling it a puma. A puma. It's like a little baby thing. A puma. You're unimpressed.
This is very amusing, I'm sure, for someone.
Well, yeah, lovers of language and culture. You know, quite a literate audience.
Puma's a German company anyways. What do you
I
mean?
just assume this is the sort of thing that they're interested in. That's all. I'm just saying, we got a double O. You can bring them out anytime. Pop them in. What were we talking? We're talking about what was going on.
We're talking about how hot air rushed out, like, out of your face.
Yeah, there we go. Crushing it. Zing, zing. No, we were talking about the monsters in Sigourney Weaver's fridge.
Right, because hot air rushed out and strange malignant smells, and the atmosphere of another place entirely, for the interior of the refrigerator was gone. Inside was a pathway of stone steps, flanked by leaping fires and leading to a stone platform before a great steel door. On either side of the door, the statue of a mythological beast, Bizarre, yet somehow familiar, its claws poised. The chanting rolled over Dana in waves.
I think he does this stuff quite well. I think these descriptions are pretty good. I think he sells it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, he balances the comedy and the spooktacularness. That follows the film very closely as Venkman goes off to investigate Dana's apartment, but there's a nice blast from Egon's past here as well. Egon was the one who had attempted to nullify gravity by wrapping a high-tension power cable around a playground jungle gym, certain that reversing the polarity of that much steel would propel the object into space. You can't tell me this guy does not understand these characters. I mean, come on, that's brilliant.
Awesome.
This is the same guy. That strikes me as the guy that tried to drill the hole in his head. That's perfect.
Yes.
Then we get an entirely new scene, Lauren. This is all new. This isn't in the film. This is new for us, the readers of the book, and the listeners, because they don't know about this. There's Ghostbusters fans out there, and they're going to just have their minds blown because they didn't know that this was the thing. So, bridal suite of the Sedgwick Hotel, and a couple who are married, thank goodness, have just done a dirty deed. But is it a dirty deed if you're married?
No, I'm sure the wife is nicely disappointed too.
Yes. And our new husband, Roy, goes off to the bathroom, I guess to have a bit of a gentleman's wash.
A hooker's bath.
After the whole incident. And then his wife, she hears strange noises from in there. Followed by this mysterious vapor is coming through the vents. The clock suddenly breaks. She goes in to investigate, and this is what she sees.
The room itself was discolored, the sickly yellow-brown of old damp newspapers, and smoke seeming to hang in the air, smelling of vomit and rot and old meat. As she watched, gagging, it coalesced and flowed into the mirror. That's impossible, she thought. Smoke can't go into a mirror, but it did, swirling in a whirlpool, forming, becoming solid, with features and movement. It was a face. The thing smiled, wagged a foot-long tongue at her, and belched. The mirror cracked.
I really wish this scene had been in the film. I mean, this is a pretty fun introduction to Slimer.
Slimer!
Yeah! You know, we think Slimer, oh, he's cute, he's fun, he's funny because he was in cartoons and all that sort of stuff. They turned him into a bit of a hero character. But I love here that they really give him this character. They show you how he terrorized the hotel in order for the Ghostbusters to arrive. And they also really play up how disgusting he is. I mean, now you watch the cartoon and think, oh, yeah, they're all having fun and games and he's kissing Peter, but he smells like vomit and rotting meat. It just changes everything.
And we drink our Ecto Cooler.
Yeah, Ecto Cooler, vomit-flavored soda. Yeah. No, we didn't have that here. We've got rules.
You didn't have Ecto Cooler? Bright green juice. It's juice in quotes.
The only thing that bugged me about this was that they keep saying everything to do with Slimer was yellow. He's green, surely. One of my favourite descriptions is actually as the Ghostbusters head off to kick Slimer ass, stop him from hassling that nice couple, we get this description of them firing up the proton packs for the first time. Stantz and Venkman edged away as the whole car began to vibrate. It's an elevator car. Dust motes kicking into motion in the suddenly polarized air. The hair went up on Venkman's neck, and he felt a crawling sensation on his scalp as if 1,000 lice had begun a breakdown competition among the roots of his hair. He swallowed uncomfortably, noticing that Stantz had curled his lips back and away from his teeth. "Ray, you okay?" Stantz shook his head. "Egon, the filling in my mouth are beginning to heat up." Great sense of power with those things. I mean, that's one of those moments which actually it gives you so much more in the book compared to the film because you're aware of just how dangerous these friggin' things are.
Yeah, nuclear reactors, right? Something like that?
That's right. It's some scary shit, Lauren. And I thought the ghosts were scary.
And then they meet Slimer, right?
Yeah, they do. Here's Slimer.
20 feet away, hovering over a room service cart, was the object of his search. A free vapor, apparently composed of a series of compacted noxious gases, with a face like a misshapen potato and a pair of spindly arms.
No, like misshapen potato. We sure it wasn't Wertho or Edjo or Jai Courtney or someone up here?
I thought the same thing when I read it. Definitely were, though, I think.
He's like, oh, here you go, mate. I'm on a Friday night, guys. Come on, try and bust me, mate. I'll punch you in the face. I'll slime ya. And a really nice description as well of actually catching the ghost. Like, I do think this Mueller guy has some real chops, which makes me surprised if he wrote that Animalville, whatever it was. An inverted pyramid of glowing, charged particles leapt toward the ceiling, cold light that streamed back towards itself, even as it exploded outward, pulling the vapour down and in with a thunderous roar like 1,000 locomotives. The spring-loaded door snapped shut, and everything was silent, accepting the last poots of energy on Ray's pack as the charge gave out. Although he commits to all this, Lauren, there's one thing he doesn't commit to. He's a bit like you in this regard. With your substitute swearing.
Yeah.
We came, we saw, we
kicked its butt.
Its butt. What a pussy.
Yes, I agree.
New character appears in this next scene. A crowd is gathered outside. A young man dressed in a black canvas jumpsuit and chains in a red bandana tying back his chartreuse hair. And this guy's name is Mr. Dave. Who's your favourite Ghostbusters character?
Totally Mr. Dave.
Mr. Dave. A lot of people are in that boat.
I didn't even put it together that was the same guy that shows up later.
Yeah, Mr. Dave, he's important.
Yeah.
He wants to go of Egon's gun. He's like, oh, give me a look at that gun, sucker. And Egon's like, no. And then, like, there's some really big publicity happens for the Ghostbusters because they've caught the Slimer. That leads to other ghosts, and the media are going wild. And I quite liked this headline.
Boffo biz for spook kooks, cried Variety.
Just like Variety to cry such crazy things.
Yeah.
And I thought this was fun too. Tonight, Johnny's guests will be Charo, Arnold Schwarzenegger, 82-year-old hooker Nancy Winky, and Ghostbuster Egon Spengler. So don't go away. This is where I'm torn, Lauren. I'm like, who's my favourite Ghostbuster character? Is it Mr. Dave or is it Nancy Winky?
Nancy, I think, for sheer determination.
Isn't that a story we want to hear as well? Like, don't we want to hear maybe like Bojang and Harlan could hang out with Nancy Winky? Oh God, can you imagine those three together? What a wild night!
Talk about?
Well, what wouldn't they talk about is probably the more apt question there.
True.
Yeah, they would borrow a book with some interesting woodcuts in it. That's for sure.
Erotic Japanese lithographs.
So this is really that ghost catching montage that happens in the film, but no ghost BJ, unlike in the film. Very disappointing. Yeah,
that's from a deleted scene, so maybe.
Maybe the good news is that deleted scene's going to show up later on. Ooh, foreshadowing. That's how we keep the listeners engaged, invested. And then Janine considers herself the Jewish mother to the spiritual population of New York, which I just love that little description.
That was funny. It says that she has a Queens accent, and I moved to Queens a long time ago.
Can you do it?
My first day in Queens, I was in line at the pharmacy, and this lady next to me goes, "Ugh, Ariel is so sick. She's as sick as a dog. I can't believe it. She stayed home from school. Sick as a dog." Where am I?
I love it when a 3-letter word can be dragged out to 3 syllables. A big fan of that. Yep. Beautiful.
That movie got 4 stars. I can't believe it.
There's another character. We forgot a very important character.
Isn't he this one Courtney's favorite character?
Yeah, Courtney's favorite Ghostbusters character after Mr. Dave and Nancy Winky is Winston Zeddemore. He turns up for the job, and I don't remember this from the film.
Mm-mm. And this is Winston Zeddemore. He came about the job. "You're black," Stan said delightedly. "Yes, I know. No, you see, certain forms of vapors, particularly later types of cyclical roamers, respond better to black people."
That's why they hired him so quickly. See, I never got that in the film.
Yeah.
It was because, he was some kind of decoy for cyclical roamers? It was like, oh shit, we're cyclical roamers. We'll bring out the black guy and then let them all go towards him. I don't know. I would be looking into that if I was him. I would be following up on that and making sure that's all above board because it doesn't sound great to me. But that's what happens in this book. Again, isn't this fun? You don't know if it was that in the script or is this just Richard Mueller being nuts? I wish we knew.
Yeah. Let's ask him.
Okay. I'll just give him a call now.
Boop, boop, boop.
Hello, is that Richard?
Yes.
I'm just wondering. Hang on, Lauren, please. I'm talking to Richard. Stop laughing. Sorry. I was just wondering, Richard, this whole thing with the black person, was that you being nuts or was that in the script?
No comment.
Okay, I gotta go. Thanks. Well, there we go. I guess we'll never know. It's not ours to know. One of the great mysteries. I think there's one more human character that we've got to get a handle on, and that is standing in his office was the tallest, thinnest man Venkman had ever seen. He sported a fashionably trimmed red blonde beard and was dressed in a beautifully tailored three-piece suit. Venkman disliked him on sight. Another nasal spray type. Just nice economical descriptions. This is Walter Peck, of course, and he's also compared to a ferret or weasel, which is just perfect.
Very.
That is the animal that he is. Like, if I was casting Wind in the Willows, needed to get some weasels in there, I would get Walter Peck on the line immediately. In fact, let's give him a call. No, I'm kidding. So Peck causes trouble, and a Twinkie is an analogy for some bad shit ahead, which is probably quite apt.
A little foreshadowing, cream filling, marshmallow.
Yeah. Do you think Ghostbusters is part of the Twinkie mythology and Twinkies being associated with America and being like a thing, or was it always a thing and it's just our exposure to Twinkies is through Ghostbusters in other countries?
The second one. Twinkies have been a thing since the 50s.
Yeah.
With Twinkie the Kid. Very famous commercials.
It's just such a nothing thing though. Why is it a thing?
Because it's just sugar.
It's just processed. It's not even like food.
I know. I used to eat them when I was a kid every day for lunch. Had a Twinkie. Peanut butter sandwich, Twinkie, apple.
That is more terrifying than anything that happens in this book.
Yeah.
When the stone terror dog atop Dana's building starts busting out from its outer shell, because it was a statue, but there's a real dog underneath. In the book, a piece of it nearly hits bloody Bo J. Harlan in the head. So he just cannot escape this story. And like you said, he's everywhere at once, pretty much.
What are the odds?
I think it's kind of odd that they saw Dana in the park and now they're hanging outside a building. I mean, there's a darker kind of story happening here, I think. They've just had their free bottle of wine and now they're like, oh, hello, legs. And then they're hanging outside the apartment. They're lucky that terror dog that they bump into probably saved her from a whole mess of business. And nothing reminds you of the 80s like this line.
Dana tossed her coat in the closet, took off her leg warmers, and stretched out briefly in her favorite chair.
And the chair, of course, turns on her, which is ironic because it was her favorite, probably not after this. As she watched, mesmerized, the door buckled, then drew in like a great rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat. No. Oh no, she exclaimed and started to rise, but a pair of dark, scaly hands ripped upward out of the chair and locked around her waist, pinning her to the cushions.
That scene scared me a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too. It's really terrifying. It's a straight horror scene. And that horrible idea of being so vulnerable, even like sitting at home in a chair that you love, your favorite chair, and then these things come out of it. These things that can't even possibly fit inside it are inside it.
Yeah, it was like, ugh. I always looked away at that part.
Except now as an adult, all I see is the fact that one of those hands just goes boom,
right
straight up
crotch.
in between Sigourney Weaver's legs. You
Yes.
think some props guy puppeteer spent the whole day just popping his hand up at Sigourney Weaver's beavers.
So somebody watched Nightmare on Elm Street before they filmed that scene.
True. At least it didn't have those big claws on. That would have been a whole other problem. Another snippet of backstory here.
Earlier that month, one of the supermarket tabloids had run a profile on Venkman, charging that he had been a carnival con man during his summers away from college. Venkman had been furious. "But you were a carny barker," Stance had said, not understanding Peter's anger.
This is some of the criticism I've heard from people that have read this, going, "Oh, and they make Peter a carny? They just don't understand these characters at all." He is a grifter. He's like the quintessential grifter. And he wasn't like a career carny. This was summers away from college. I think it totally fits. He's always been the game show host, the used car salesman, the confidence trickster, the con man, the carny. I think that's perfect. That's like who he is. I don't see the problem with that.
I mean, it makes total sense. It makes awesome sense, I meant to say.
It does make awesome sense. But I think fans have this problem where if they like a character, they almost, just because they turn it into a kind of diluted Mary Sue character. They want it to be them to suddenly be perfect. Mm-hmm. And to be this thing that they've created in their head. But the truth is we like these characters because they are flawed and they are crazy and they do have all these weird stories associated with them. So I thought it was really nice world building. And plus, it's take it or leave it world building because it's a novelization. Like hardly anyone will have read it. It's not canon. It's just like a nice thing to flesh out the story that you're reading, and I appreciated it. I thought it was all cool.
Yeah, I agree.
What I'm essentially saying is everybody is dumb except me.
And me.
And you. Well, of course, by association. We're one and the same here. We're the same team. We're in the same corner in this big boxing ring of podcasting.
Yeah.
Okay, now, this same newspaper, the National Reporter, this is another scene which is not in the film. It has its own ghost problem. Now, can you think of the irony here? Because they have been saying that the Ghostbusters are frauds. Now they have a ghost problem and they're like, "We're sorry, Ghostbusters. Can you come and bust our ghosts?" And Venkman's like, "No, get out of here."
Maybe in a month.
Yeah. So...
Well,
all hell breaks.
Yes. Good one.
What is wrong? What are you doing?
I'm yawning.
Okay.
Sorry.
It is morning for you. This is for me. I should be asleep in bed by now, but no.
At 8 o'clock.
You yawn. That's fine. It's international productions. God damn. So just like on this show, all hell has broken loose. I go, Lauren, I was possessed by a ghost for a second there, and it used my mouth for its own foul deeds. Terrifying.
I bet you say that a lot.
Jumbled up, mate. That has been an excuse on a number of occasions. You know how, they say that there's a worm at the bottom of a tequila bottle? I've always felt there was a ghost that made me do bad things. Often with my mouth. Mm-hmm. All hell breaks loose. Lewis Tully is attacked by a terror dog. He's chased into the park, and that's that actual deleted scene I was talking about with Harlan Bojay and Robert Leonard Coombs, the unsung heroes of the Ghostbusters saga. They're unsung now, but I'm hoping that by the end of this week we can perhaps write and produce a song about them.
At that moment, the terror dog bounded by, scattering gravel. Bojay's jaw dropped. "That is one speedy mutt," Combs added. "He's a big one, but you don't want to mess with that breed. Some sort of fighting spaniel, I would guess." Bojay shook his head. "This city gets weirder all the time."
New York, with its Cloverfields, its Lokis, and its Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Is there anything that the jaded populace would even look twice at?
Maybe Chuds.
Chuds? Possibly. So, Lewis now, after being attacked by the dog, has been transformed into Vince Clortho, Keymaster of Goza, and he is now looking for the gatekeeper, paging Dr. Freud. He leaned back into the horse. "Wait for the sign. All prisoners will be released." Then he turned and scampered away. Like a monkey, Linz thought. Linz is the policeman. Some kind of religious monkey nut.
Of all the monkey nuts, the religious ones are the worst.
They are so judgmental. And then Peter discovers that meanwhile Dana has also changed.
She stood before him in a loose, flowing gown, hanging low off the shoulder. Her hair was billowed outward as if caught in a photograph, yet windblown and alive. Her lips were slightly parted and wet. Her skin was glistening softly.
Oh my. So, it's all happening. Peter's there with Dana, wet lips glistening. And then, meanwhile, Winston and Ray are sitting in the car and they are having a philosophical conversation. And I could not remember if this is in the film or not. Like, I know they talk about Judgment Day, but I don't know if they say this bit. I don't know if you remember. But do you believe in God? Winston asks, continuing to disjoint the conversation. No, but I like Jesus' style. Me too. Parts of the Bible are great.
I don't remember. I haven't seen the movie in a bit. But I think I remember he asked him if he believes in God, but I don't think the rest.
Okay, how can we find out? Shall I ring, just looking in my address book here, shall we ring Winston or God?
Well, you'll probably get a faster reply from Winston.
He doesn't do much these days. Conventions.
Such a good actor.
Lewis Tully eats a Rubik's Cube in this book.
Yeah, that's odd.
It's puzzling. Puzzling.
I get it. Oh, I see what you did there.
It's puzzling, right, listener? It's it's a Rubik's Cube. And it's puzzling. Here is a line that I've always wanted to see in print, and this book did not disappoint.
Many shubs and zulls knew what it was like to be roasted in the depths of Slore that day, I can tell you.
Perfect.
It's like we wandered into a Lovecraft story.
Yeah.
With all
I want to hear that story. Again, that's a parallel tale, Nancy Winky and the Shubs and Zulls. There's your Ghostbusters 3. Yeah. I'll say this. Somewhere out there listening right now, Courtney has been just going absolutely nuts that she's not here to do her Rick Moore anus impression. Because she does a really good one, and I bet she's like just going, do this thing. But there you go.
Sorry.
But the good news is, the ghost BJ is here instead. And you are right, this was a deleted scene. And I didn't actually know this story, but there was a scene that was deleted, and that segment was put earlier in the film as part of the montage.
Right, which is why he's wearing a weird outfit.
Yeah, but I never made that connection. Because what happens is Ray actually speaks to Tully about all this stuff in a fort gatehouse and then decides to spend the night here and dresses up in a Revolutionary War officer's uniform. And then when he sleeps, that's when the ghost lady appears above his bed. And we get this. The phantom woman had vanished. Well, that's the end of that, he decided, and started to rise. His belt suddenly came undone. The buttons on his pants began to open one by one. He felt an electric sensation between his legs. Bear in mind, this is the guy that wouldn't say but, like had said but instead of ass in his book, is now describing this. He thought, maybe we've been going about this all wrong. Maybe some of these spirits are friendly, beneficial. Fantastic. He closed his eyes. I don't think we're going to find this one, he thought. So this is the first time a Ghostbuster has slimed a ghost. Is it opposite day?
Ew.
Wow. And then, speaking of surprise dicks, Walter Peck unleashes all the ghosts in the containment unit.
Venkman looked up at the towering ghostly gusher, spewing spirits all over Manhattan and splattering the neighborhood with slime.
A ghostly gusher sounds like something you'd find on Urban Dictionary as well.
It should be in the other scene.
The Sedgwick Hotel manager, now remember, he was quite a upper class gentleman, quite a snob. He goes down to the street to buy a hot dog from a vendor. So obviously their allure just crosses all class boundaries. Everybody in New York is hot dog crazy. And he goes to enjoy his delicious wiener. and Slimer bursts out of the cart and runs back into the hotel where they had kidnapped him from. So that's not in the film either. That's pretty funny, right? Mm. And, you know, we were talking about things in this. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Just look, I'm just going to keep talking. So anything to sort of punctuate it, it's just fantastic. That's all the listeners want. They just want someone that will occasionally... In fact, any of the guest hosts out there, if you're kind of getting sick of doing this show or scheduling or whatever, just record yourself going, yeah, yes. And Luke. Luke, you're so funny. And I'll just edit it in. And there we go. Do you think our belligerent listeners are going to notice? No. I don't know shit. Yeah, we talked about things that scared us. How did you go with this guy? Because this guy scared the bejesus out of me.
Yeah, me too. Where am I? Oh, the cabbie, a palpable reconstructor type 3, had been dead for over 15 years, but it still remembered how to drive, and it had nothing to lose. A skeletal hand flipped up the flag on the meter and put the engine in gear.
That I couldn't even look at that for so long. Like, if we were watching the film on video or whatever, I'd always look away when that guy turned up. And for me, it was like a betrayal. It was like they'd changed the rules on me. Like, we had all these sort of comical ghost-like creatures. And then suddenly you've got living dead, which feels so much more evil and dangerous to me. And I was like, oh, no, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah, like a physical zombie thing that can drive a car.
Yeah.
Instead of just like Slimer.
Yeah, playing pretty loose with the rules there, Mr. Aykroyd. Mm. And then another new scene, a female bank manager has to rush to the bathroom when a ghost persistently tickles her legs.
Yeah, I think it was moving higher up. So I thought, can you prosecute a ghost for sexual assault?
Yeah, and...
this 80s casual sexism, gotta love it.
Yeah, because she kind of seems into it. Did she seem into it in the book? I couldn't figure that out.
I think so. Well, she didn't, it was like she didn't know what was happening.
But then she ran to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I don't know how to interpret that.
Oh, it's weird, a weird scene. I'm glad it wasn't in the movie, because it was just...
It's not cool.
No, not cool. Not cool at all.
And Vince Clortho / Lewis Tully has a run-in with Mr. Dave. Mr. Dave is back. Yes, sucker, we bar your way. Vince was filled with the strength of the Voldreni. He opened his mouth and let out a terrifying roar that snapped the blade of Mr. Dave's knife and tore bricks from inside of the tunnel. Streams of iridescent light sparked out, discharging bolts of static electricity into the muggers. Another interesting scene. I wonder if it was cut because it was too long, too expensive, but this is really the only time where you see that Lewis Tully isn't just like crazy Rubik's Cube eater, but that he is actually a real physical threat, that, you know, this supernatural thing inside him has real power.
Yeah, maybe that's why they took it out. They didn't want him to be too powerful. They want to keep him as like a goofy sidekick.
Quite possibly. Let's
or
give
they
him
ran
a call.
out of money. They ran out of effects money.
Well, yeah, because this is also cut. There's this old theatre, which he says is in the book is a porno theatre, which, again, he said but, because he couldn't say we kicked its ass. But, talking about it being a porno theatre, ghosts appear in the projection light of the theatre. Mm-hmm.
The first glowing phantom appeared on the lighted line. It was a strutting comedian in a straw boater and a checked suit, cane in one hand. Next came a black-faced minstrel with a banjo.
Can the Ghostbusters defeat the ghost of racism?
They hired Winston, so...
It's a step in the right direction.
Racism is dead, right?
Until you realise that he's a decoy for cyclical roamers. And then the Ghostbusters go before His Honor, the mayor. His name is His Honor. And yeah.
I didn't even...
Well...
I didn't even say it out loud.
Look, you got there eventually.
I got it.
More pussying out on the swears. In the film, I'll do the film version, you do the book version.
Right.
So in the film, Winston says, "Since I joined these men, I've seen shit that would turn you white." Very famous line.
Yeah.
In the book, he says...
Yeah. "Since I joined these men, I've seen jazz that would boggle your mind."
Yeah. Well, not quite the same, is it?
No.
And the best thing in the movie is made totally lame here.
Yeah, that was so disappointing. It was fine until this jerk here shut down our power. Is this true? The mayor asked. Venkman stepped forward. Yes, Your Honor, this man is a jerk.
No.
No. That was the best
No.
part.
It is such a great, the whole "this man has no dick" is so wonderful in the film. It's like, it plays to everybody, kids of all ages, grandparents, everybody loves that line. Everyone laughs at poor old Walter Peckerless, but not here. And then our hobo friends, they join the crowd that gathers around Dana's building for the big finale. They talk about Shakespeare and all sorts of stuff. The Ghostbusters, they head up to the roof to sort all this out. Dana and Lewis Tully are turned into terror dogs. And finally, we meet Gozer.
It had the form of a thin, very strange young girl, apparently swathed in clinging mist from ankle to neck. The hair swept up and back, not precisely cut short, but seeming to disappear, as if it linked the being to its home dimension, and its eyes were of the deepest blood red and liquid, like two beating hearts swimming in their own juices.
I love that description of the eyes. The heart swimming in their own... It's beautiful. Like, it's so evocative. Again, it gives you this whole other dimension on these characters than you would get in the film. And certainly, in this instance, makes them seem so much more epic. Because I think even as a kid, Gozer's really difficult to process after you've seen everything else in the film. It's such a weird design and weird sort of notion. It's like everything else has been actually kind of scary or funny, and she's... Yeah, I don't know what to think of her.
Yeah,
the costume looks like
Gozer.
a dance suit, though.
Yeah, she's like I looked her up, like a gymnast. She's not really in many things, this lady.
Yeah.
But Gozer is definitely her most famous part. She's only in the movie for a minute, but just that image sticks with you because it's such a great character design.
Speaking of images sticking... Ray inadvertently chooses the form of their destruction. The marshmallow monster, 100 feet tall and grinning insanely like its namesake, trudged slowly up the edge of the park, passing the tavern on the green and heading unerringly for them.
Tavern on the Green was a good restaurant. I ate there once.
Is that the one that... In the film, Lewis goes and bangs on the glass when the terror dog attacks him?
Yep, same one.
Just really descriptive name. That's exactly what you'd expect that restaurant to be called, just from the look of it.
And it's closed now. Yeah, it's something else.
Was it a good experience?
It was good. The waiter was just as snooty as you'd think.
I'm imagining very snooty, but I bet as snooty as he was, he still, after work, rushed across the road to have a hot dog.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's all he could afford on waiter's salary.
And they cross the streams.
Do you ever cross the stream, Luke?
Look, I was a young boy, and young boys can stream anywhere they like. So it's only, and with whoever they like. So it's only natural that streams would be crossed on some occasion. The streams touched, tangled, and broke into a billion intersecting fragments. Time stopped, the temple doors melted, the interdimensional gate closed, and Gozer, the stay-puffed marshmallow man, its link to its own time gone, was consumed in a roaring firestorm. So there we go. Everything goes to shit at the end. You notice, like, we're right near the end now. We're just about to read the ending. We didn't talk about a photo section, and this book does have photos. It's got black and white photos, but they are interspersed throughout the book. And they're not in order. There's stuff from, like, quite late in the story early on, and it's really confusing, and there's no captions, and it's just like, here's some stuff.
Yeah,
You
they
figure it out.
definitely assume that you've seen it before.
Yeah, and they make an ass out of you and me.
Maybe you, not me.
Well,
I can do that by myself.
They didn't ass you. They asked you mead. The ending. Stans leaned out of the driver's seat. Hey, you two lovebirds, let's get out of here before the crowd comes back.
Peter Venkman looked at the ruined street full of potholes and marshmallow, overturned cars and confused people, at Stan Spengler and Zeddemore, Tully, Janine, and the Ectomobile, and at Dana Barrett.
She reached out and picked a chunk of marshmallow off his cheek, popped it into her mouth, and grinned.
Well, Hotshot, what do you think?
Peter Venkman threw his arms in the air. I love this town! Which he doesn't say. Doesn't Winston say that in the film? I think Winston does.
I think so. The ending seems it's very abrupt, but I know that's how the movie ends. But it's just like the whole build up, and then they kill it, and then I love this town, and
But the movie, like, they're down on the street and they're getting T-shirts and stuff, and everybody's like having a party on the street. And I don't remember. Does she call him Hot Shot? Does anybody ever called anyone Hot Shot in real life?
as a joke.
And then the movie, the real ending of the movie is, remember, Slimer goes like flying through the sky and towards the camera, and then we get the credits. So that didn't happen here either. But he went back into the hotel. That's where he belongs. So it was a happy ending for him as well.
An interesting thing about the book is the author makes it explicitly clear that Lewis and Dana, did the dirty deed. Whereas the movie kind of leaves it a little vague. When I was a kid watching it, I didn't know what was going on. But
Well, I was the opposite as a kid, and I wasn't a particularly innocent kid. I had seen pornography and magazines and things at a quite a young age. Certainly by the time I had seen Ghostbusters, I'd been exposed to that. And that when Lewis is laying on his back and he sits up and his belt's undone, and one end of his belt is like sticking up, sort of like in silhouette. As a kid seeing it the first time, I thought it was his penis. And I didn't even think twice about it. It was just so naturalized to me, like, yep, he's just had sex, so there's his penis, because that's what happens.
But like in the book, they mention it. He's like, "Did we?" And they're like, "I don't remember." But in the movie, they never even mention it. So I was like, "Wait a minute." So she just had sex with this. So is the baby in the second movie Lewis's? No, it's not old enough. I'm trying to think.
That's a good theory.
It's not though, because it's 5 years later. And the kid is only like 8 months. But
she's a busy woman. She could have had a very long, just never got around to delivering it.
Yeah. That's how babies work.
Isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, you can just hold it in until you feel like you want it.
Well, that would make sense. I mean, that would make life a lot easier. Like, do we have to make things harder for women?
I mean, that's what I understand. And I went to public school, so, that's a good guess as any.
You know what I've got to ask you?
Have I ever seen a ghost? Have you ever seen a ghost? No, I haven't.
You have?
No.
No. Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't discount the possibility, but I'll believe it when I see it, which is odd coming from me, I know. But what about you? Believe in ghosts?
No, I don't think so. I just think, especially now, in like, everybody's got a camera around all the time and photograph everything. Like, anything happens in the world and we get multiple angles of it from someone who was there. I just think, so many times in the past, everyone I know who says, and I work with people that go, "Oh yeah, I've seen ghosts," or their stories are always really shaky. Like, they'll go, I saw this small boy in the corridor of my house. And I go, "Well, what did you do?" And they don't, "Oh, I don't know." And I'm like, "But surely you know what you did. Like, did you say something? Did it disappear? What happened?" And they're like, "I saw a small boy." And you're like, "Yeah, but what happened?"
Yeah.
And I think now, like, surely somebody in the world would just film it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But I guess...
So, like, we would have it. Like, everybody's, and even if you just had a suspicion, you could leave your camera running every night. Like, that stuff is just so readily accessible to everybody. I just begin to think now, if it's possible, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
I believe a cat can play a keyboard, because I've seen it. And, very talented cat wearing a T-shirt too, which was quite special. But, I don't know. That wasn't you're playing me for a fool, Lauren, because that's not the question I was going to ask you.
I know.
I was going to ask you, was the book better? It's the name of the show. It's not, do you believe in ghosts with Luke Milton?
I know. You should start that one.
Yeah, but...
It's really hard because, I don't know. It's a hard one because I really, really like the book. But the movie is the best. So I guess no, but it could be... As a separate thing, it's like equal. But if you have to compare the two, the movie's better.
Of course the movie's better. It's Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is awesome.
It's Ghostbusters.
But it was a good book. And unfortunately,
the book is great.
That's the way this always falls with those classic movies. The movies like Back to the Future and Raiders of the Lost Ark and whatever. Even if the book is fantastic, it's pretty much always going to be the movie because the movie's what we know and love. And it's a full experience. But... it was up there. It was a good effort. Good on you, Richard Mueller. I might even read Animalville, Secrets of Animalville. Find out what that secret is, because you've won me over, you beautiful, beautiful man.
Yeah, I want to know why Palmdale must be destroyed.
Because it's shit. Amazon was kind of interesting, and it answers, somebody who's done far more research than you or I, answers the question about these two novelizations. 5 years later, to coincide with the imminent release of Ghostbusters 2, it was novelized again by a new author. Richard Mueller works with the original screenplay before the post-production reordering that changed the flow of the middle section of the movie. The Fort Detmering sequence that you've all heard about is presented here in the novel. That's the Ghost BJ sequence. But nothing really happens, and it still doesn't fix the chronology errors in which Winston proclaims to have worked for the company for a couple of weeks, but clearly has only been with them for a few days. Or even worse, just one day in the movie. So if that's true, this one is actually the second one. So they went, we've got a more accurate one, but now we'd like another one with extra hobo scenes, please. Very strange.
More hobos.
Hey, how about this one? I was hesitant on buying it since I have never had a book that was $40 other than a college textbook, but they are more easy replace compared to this. So this is a college student. Someone who has been to college wrote this mongrel of a sentence. But also, I just thought, you like $40. No one's more paid. No books worth more than $40. No art books. No big beautiful coffee. I felt bad for this person.
Yeah, they have to have a sad life.
Yes, that's
or
pretty
a very
much
happy life of blissful ignorance.
Yeah, isn't it ironic how that happens too? And this one was on Goodreads, and this is the last one I'm going to read, but I just thought it was kind of confusing. Co-worker said it was terrible, that I had never seen this movie, so he lent me the book.
Instead of the DVD.
Nice going, buddy.
You can borrow this book, but you can't have my Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you can't just watch it on YouTube or something. You must now read this book. I just can't imagine the experience that this person had. That you kind of have to have seen the film, preferably close to it coming out, to really appreciate it in the same way that we might.
Yeah, it came out in 1984.
Yep.
And I was 4.
I was 8.
So it's very much in my brain, has always existed as a thing.
Yeah. And are you excited that they're coming back as ladies?
Not excited, not just, I'm indifferent really. I'll see it.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me excited or make me angry, nothing. It's just like, oh, cool, a new version of Ghostbusters. I'll check it out.
It's just all stuff, isn't it? When it comes down to it, it's a whole lot of stuff and things.
I mean, I know you're of the mind that you should keep remaking things, right? That was you. Or is that another podcast I listened to?
No, I do kind of believe that to a degree. Like, I think even if they're shitty remakes, like that last RoboCop movie, I really didn't like.
Oh.
But and RoboCop 3 was shitty too. But I think you lose those stories otherwise. And when a bad Total Recall or whatever comes out, at least those stories go back into the public consciousness, and kids hear about them, and they often look up the originals, and then they start to revere the originals because they've got something to rally against with the new version. And I think it's like a bonding point for various generations. Like, I think fathers and mothers can sort of go, oh yeah, look, we're going to go and see the new Ghostbusters, and then if they're disappointed, they might go, oh, that was nothing like the original, and then they might all watch the original. You know what I mean? I went to see Jurassic World, and there was this family, and all these families there, and there's this family in the line, and the older mother and dad are really excited, and they're going to the daughter who's probably about 14. Have you not seen any of them before? And she's like, no, I've never seen any of them. And they're like, oh my God. So that would have been her first one, and it was a family event. She knows it's important to them. And then whether they're disappointed or whether it was good or whatever, they might go and seek out the original. So I think if you don't remake it, those things just go. People forget about them. There's no reason for us to keep thinking about them. Kids don't know what they are, and they just disappear.
True. certain things I get angry about, like super classics, like the old ones. It's like, well, just like for instance, The Day the Earth Stood Still is one of my very favorite movies, old sci-fi movies. And then I was going to see Batman Begins, or one of those Nolan Batman movies, and the trailer for the remake came on.
Yeah.
And the theater was packed, and the trailer ended, and I went, boo! I started booing at the trailer. My husband was like, shh. I like, go watch the original. Don't watch that garbage. And I watched it, and it was total garbage. But I was like, on the one hand, maybe somebody will look up the original one. But they're not going to probably watch that either, because it's a slow black and white movie about human nature and a war. It's not with an alien, but it's not about aliens, you know, like, so.
But those really shitty remakes, I mean, they don't survive like the test of time anyway. I mean, people do forget about them pretty quickly, and you know, I think it's one of those things, because that film, for example, was so not seen by anyone, that if you said The Day the Earth Stood Still, most people won't jump to the reboot. They'll still think of the original. I think maybe that's what
Gort.
Yeah, that's what fans are afraid of. They have this like idea that people will think of the remake and forget about the original, but I don't think that ever really happens.
True.
Unless the remake is just miles better. Like, people think of John Carpenter's The Thing as opposed to the original Thing, but they don't think about the reboot of John Carpenter's Thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that middle one won. They always go with what's best, and that's great. I mean,
I love the original Thing as well, but it's just like on a total other playing field, because it was 1954, you know, so.
Yeah.
He was a giant carrot, like, basically. A big carrot shows up.
It was all about eating vegetables. I remember that.
Well, they blew him up in the end, so.
It was all about not eating vegetables. Meat wins.
Go, no vegetables.
There we go. Lauren, I am enjoying this conversation a lot, and perhaps we can continue it off mic, but this thing is going to be an absolute bastard for me to edit. So how about we disappear and leave these belligerent listeners to their own lives?
Yeah, they don't want to hear intellectual conversations about film history, do they?
No, these guys. God, no. No. Listen to the other shows. Listen to FP Cast. That's the pop culture podcast. Thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon. And thank you very much, Lauren, for joining me on this special spooktacular episode.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Excellent. So would you like to say the thing so that we can get out of here?
Catch you on the flips.
Jumanji!